everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Chris Yee.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
Today we're reviewing another game in the Space Trilogy from Bitewing Games and Reiner Knizia. This is number 2. We've already reviewed the other 2, which was Orbits, a racing game, and
Silos, the area control game.
Yes, and this is Ego, which is, for lack of better words, is an auction game based on an older game that Reiner Knizia designed years ago called Beowulf, which caused, when Beowulf came out back in the day, there was a lot of dispute back and forth on it because the game was called Beowulf, and you basically went through it trying to be Beowulf's coolest helper, helping him by playing cards with axes and shields on them. You were still bidding, and the theme didn't quite match, and so a lot of people were thrown off by that, and some people enjoyed it, but it didn't really take off. They've just gotten rid of that now. It's in space, and with this very funky, weird cover, and you're bidding on stuff, trying to become the new galactic power. You're rival ambassadors, and you're trying not to tick off aliens.
It's all I do. Me and Beowulf.
I like it. It makes about as much sense as any kind of a theme would, where, you know, you're trying to kind of do negotiation in a very abstracted way.
Sure, and I get that. And actually, I was amused. It amuses me that the game was about Beowulf and is now about aliens, showing you kind of the interchangeability of themes. But when I play, we get into, like, how did I offend the aliens? You know, there's a bit of that involved with it. But it is an auction game, and Mike's about to show you how to play.
Ego is a game with a slightly modular setup. You're always going to start with the solar system board here at the beginning, and you're always going to end with the arrival board here. There are 4 other boards that could potentially be in the game, and so what you do is you just essentially shuffle these up, and you're going to choose 3 of these boards, and you're going to put them randomly in the spots in between. And so in this particular game, we're going to have the Sinister system, the Alliance system, and the Treasure system. The one that happened to be left out this time was the Market system. All right, so here we see the game more fully set up. The only kind of adjustments you have to make for player count is going to be that if you have fewer than the full total of 5 players, which is the max it can play up to, you're going to remove these kind of influence, or initiative, I should say, tokens to scale to player count. So let's say instead of a 5-player game, we were playing a 4-player game, you would just get rid of this token that shows the 5 stripes, and you'd only have stripes 1, 2, 3, and 4. The other thing that you might do is for each of these kind of circular events, whether they're negotiation or bidding, and I'll talk about the difference in those in a second, you're going to kind of block off a number of those options. So in a 2-player game, you're going to block it so that you only have 2 events, or two outcomes. In a 3-player game, you'd have 3 outcomes. And let's just make like this was a 4-player game, you would block that one, and now you've got the 4 options there. Otherwise, there's no real change to the setup. You've got what are called the power cards up here. You've got the spaceship that's going to be kind of tracking your progress along the game, and you've got a whole big bunch of tactic cards, which is really what drives the game. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. All right, so the way the game is going to work is that the spaceship here is going to start on the upper left board. It's always going to start with the solar system, and when you are moving along the phases of the game, you're just going to simply move from left to right, top to bottom if you have a delineation there. So it would go from here to here, then here, then here, then here. Then we'd be done with this board. We would move on to the next board, in this case, the Sinister system. What are you doing on these boards? Well, on these boards, what you're going to be doing is a number of different things. On the first board, you're essentially kind of getting your starting kind of resources, because here at the beginning, it'll tell you in this first spot, you're going to gain 5 of the tactic cards, and you're going to gain 1 alliance token. These are the alliance tokens. They're kept in this bag. They are just different tokens. They're either going to be in the base game, they're either going to be just points or credits. And let me just show you a couple of those. So here you would see points. These are success tokens, and you can see you have different values from 1 to 3 there. You also have some credit tokens in here, and those can be values of 1, 2, or 3. Those are also represented here on the side of the board, where you can get them other than just as these tokens. So you're going to be getting like a starting little setup of 5 cards and a alliance token. There are 5 different types of cards, and if you look on the back of the player aid, it'll kind of show you here what they are. So you've got orange, teal, gray, purple, and pink. Gifts, persuasion, tech trade, intrigue, and charisma. All right. And so just looking at those cards, most of them are going to look like this. They're going to just have a single icon. They'll have a number inside of a circle that really will only come into play on bidding type events. I will explain that in a minute, but most cards are going to look like this with a single icon for that particular suit and that number that you can usually just disregard. Some of the cards, however, are going to have 2 symbols, something like this. So this is an orange card, but it has 2 symbols. Some cards may have an additional icon. So for example, this card, you can either play it as a turquoise card, or if there was an occasion in the game where you needed to spend credits, you can spend this card as a single credit instead. This is the charisma card, the wild card, and as mentioned, this can count for any other suit in the game, pretty much at any time in the game. All right, so this first board, you're getting some cards here. You're getting a chance to exchange cards. There's also going to be a drafting thing where people are going to be getting more cards. But the meat of the game is in particular events that may or may not include some type of risk, a push your luck element to the game. This spot is just called risk, and this is going to be a way that you could potentially get more cards into your hand. These types of events are optional. You don't have to choose to do them. Most of the risk-taking is going to be in these negotiation events or in these bidding events. The way to delineate that is the bidding has these little arrows pointing inward. So you've got one here, and you'll always have one in the game on the last arrival board. But most of them are going to be negotiation events. And the way that that's going to work is going to be that risk is represented in these kind of triangle icons here. Let me just show you how this risk event works. If you choose to take part in this risk event, it's telling you how many cards you're going to turn over, what icons you're looking for, and what will happen if you don't get a full success. So we're looking for the turquoise and the purple. Let's say that I chose to go after that event. So if I'm going to, what I would do is I would draw the cards one by one, and I'm looking for these 2 icons. Well, that one's not so good. That one works. That one works. And that one's not so great. So what would happen is this is called a partial success because at least one of the cards match one of those 2 icons. In this case, you take the cards that do match the icons and you take them into your hand. So you get the benefit of a couple of extra cards in your hand. These 2 cards don't match, so they just get simply discarded, and you have to take the consequence. In this case, you're taking 2 offense tokens. These offense tokens are tokens that you can gain and lose throughout the game. You don't want to have a bunch of them at the end because you have offended the aliens and you will get negative points if you have too many of these. You'll get positive points if you don't have a lot of them. But that's essentially how these risk actions are going to work. And they also will take place in these negotiation events, which are like the big kind of events of the game. On these, you have an option to take a risk as well. You don't have to do it here, and you don't have to do it here, although you do have to participate in the negotiation event itself. How does that work? Well, as you are gaining cards throughout the game, either just getting dealt them, maybe you're drafting them, taking risks to get them, you're going to be spending those cards in these negotiation events. Starting with the mission leader, who is the player that has this token, they will play 1 or more cards, depending upon the situation, of the icons that show there, and then announcing their total. So let's say the mission leader says, okay, I'm going to play this 1 orange, and so now the value is 1. In clockwise order, players will either choose to engage in that negotiation or they will pass. If they choose to engage in the negotiation, they have to play a card that equals or is higher than the previous card. So let's say the next player decides they're going to play this. It has to be a single card in this case, so they have a now 2. The next player may not have 2. They may decide they don't want to actually spend cards, so they say, I'm going to pass. They're going to take the highest valued token, in this case the number 4, and they're out for the rest of this negotiation, and then it would move on to the next player. So maybe the next player decides they're going to go ahead and match at 2, because this is wild, and then it would continue to go until players have passed and one player is left standing, that they win the negotiation. What's going to happen is that whoever wins the negotiation is going to get the first option at what they want to take here. So you've got some different outcomes. One of them is just strictly bad, so likely that's going to the last player. Here you have 2 power cards. This one has a power card and 5 points. This is 2 random alliance tokens. They decide, first player, they're going to go ahead and take this. They also will be now the mission leader moving on until the next negotiation event. They would have to win the next one to keep it, otherwise it moves to whoever wins each of these events. Also, I should mention that whenever it's anybody's go, unless they've passed, they can take this little mini risk to try to get these cards into their hand. They're drawing 2 in this case. A partial success would get you one of those cards and a offense token. I didn't mention if you have a full success, then you actually, in these events and here, you get all the cards with no penalty. If you have a complete failure, you just discard the cards, you don't get any, but the aliens are so embarrassed at your ineptitude that you don't even have to take that negative consequence, whatever it is. So players are going to go ahead and take their choices until everyone has chosen something. If you choose a power card, you're looking at this kind of face-up market of cards at the top, and there are 3 different types, and you see them all represented here. The easiest ones are these green cards. Well, they're all kind of easy. You just do whatever it says right away. In this case, you're drawing 3 of the alliance tokens out of the bag, and those are yours. You keep those face down until you choose to play them or just keep them for points at the end of the game. The yellow cards are going to be one-time use cards, and it'll usually tell you when you can play them. This says at any time you could take one of these depicted supplies, and then you just discard the card as a one-time use. And then you've got kind of these boosted up tactic cards. In this case here, you've got a gray card with 3 symbols, which can be pretty powerful, as you've seen in these negotiation events. Also, at the end of the game, you're going to be turning in sets of these symbols to get points. So essentially, this is a 5-point card because at the end of the game, you could turn it in for the 5 points there. So these are all quite good cards that usually you'll get through bonuses on these negotiation events. The difference between that and in a bidding event is that in a bidding event, instead of playing 1 card at a time face up, everyone's going to be choosing a number of cards from their hands, and they're going to be maybe under the table, keeping those ready until everyone reveals it. It does have to be of those symbols. There's also no risk that you can take on these because everything's being done simultaneously, and then you reveal them, and that's where the numbers on the cards could play out, because if there's a tie amongst a number of matching icons, then you would go to the numbers in the circles, and whoever has the highest single value will be the winner amongst those that are tied. You continue to do this through the boards, doing some exchanges, doing some negotiations, doing some bidding, getting rid of some of your offense tokens, things along those lines, until at the end you're turning in those sets to get points, and then you are conducting the final reckoning, which is looking at how many of the offense tokens that you have left over. If you have none at the end of the game, you actually gain 20 points. You're in positive points up till having 5 of them. You get 1 point if you have 5. But once you have 6 or more, you're losing points. 6 points will lose you 2, but if you somehow are stuck with 11 or more, then you've lost 40 points and something has gone horribly wrong. All right, that's essentially how the game plays. Let's head back and let you know what we think.
So this game, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds about comparing it with Beowulf, because I would imagine the vast majority of people watching have never played the older game. But they streamlined it, they changed some things, they cut out pieces of it, and then added them back in as an optional way to make the game longer. You can add in more boards to add more of those secret auctions type thing.
Yeah.
And they changed some stuff with the tokens, and I play with the quality stuff. It's a really cool production. But this is obvious. There's no reason to ever go hunt down Beowulf. This is the better game of the two.
If you want a board that it folds out in the shape of an L, go hunt down Beowulf. Other than that, I would have to venture that everything in here is an improvement. Yeah.
Speaking of components, I have a few things. Like I said, they have the upgraded version. They're beautiful pieces. I like everything. The art I'm on board with. There's a few minor things I found to be almost a hindrance. So, for example, sometimes you need to pay a total value of 3 of, let's just say, a total value of 3 of victory points or 3 victory point tokens or something like that. I wish they'd differentiate those more. That seemed to be a confusing thing for people to grasp.
I don't know. I didn't seem to have any issues. I don't know if you had usability issues at all, Mike.
With that specific case, I think you would have an issue if you didn't make that a point of emphasis during the teach. Because, yes, they look similar, right? It's the same kind of shape and color, but you do have to emphasize at the beginning that for those particular spots, it's saying any number of these types of tokens as long as they equal or exceed that value. So I'm kind of in between. I think like if you don't mention it, then Tom, I 100% agree it's going to confuse people. But if you do mention it, I think it's okay. As far as the components and the usability, I agree that the components, especially in the updated upgraded versions, are very nice. The standard ones are also perfectly fine. The only issue I have is that I have heard people, and I noticed it myself, that when you're looking at it for the first time, it looks much more overwhelming and complex than it is. It's not a terribly complex game. But yeah, if you look at it on the table, it looks like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. And you're going to quickly find out that, oh, I get it. It's really not that much. There's just a lot of visual kind of noise on the table.
I think noise is a good word to use because the actual iconography is clear and the actual events and the order of events. But when you just see the boards on the table, this looks like it's going to be way more complex than it actually is. And it is just kind of a case of noise, background clutter. The actual events are super easy to run.
Yeah, and it's nice because you go through them. This happens here, this happens here. And because most everything happens to everybody, it's easy to explain what to do next. My only other small issue with components, it's a little components, but it's also gameplay, is I personally do not like the obscuring of the pointage of the alien tokens. That drives me nuts. Make it go from 0 to whatever, or from 0 to negative whatever, but to have it go from negative 20 to positive or whatever, you know what I mean?
20
Positive 20 to negative, that drives me nuts because there's a bell curve there in the middle. And that doesn't help things either. This is the most Knizia math thing in this game. You know, that he made this thing here. So like there's a certain point, like if you, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say I have a 4 alien.
The offense tokens.
And I get the 5th one. It's not that big of a deal because the difference there is so much smaller. I get that strategy. I just think the point stuff is silly. Just start at 0 and go to the other one.
Oh, I love it. No.
Okay, I wanted to kind of make sure I understood what you're saying. I think the cutoff number is either 5 or 6. When you're at there, you know, one of them will get you plus 1 point. And then, like you said, it's kind of a bell curve where the differences in the values is not terribly much towards the middle. But if you get 11 or more of those tokens, you're losing 40 points, which you're out of the game. You're out of the game at that point, effectively. So, I'm not mathematically minded enough to know how to make that more elegant, and if there is a more elegant way. I think because the card is right there, I don't find it to be a huge issue, but I understand, I think, what you're saying, at least on an intellectual level.
Sure, I'm just saying, Jeff Engelson has talked about this before. It's for people, you know, people don't, like if you make a positive scale and a negative scale, it's the same thing, but people are more put off by the negative scale.
100%. Well, that's why Agricola says you're punished. You lose 3 points if you don't grow a single cow on your farm. People go, I can't lose 3 points. But if you just added 3 to every category, people aren't going to chase it. I think for me that there's a psychological boon to the actual feel of the game when people go, oh, I don't want to take offense tokens because it's going to hurt me. I have 5 already. I better lose some of these because I don't want to take a 6th. You're going from gaining 1 point at the end of the game to losing 2 at the end of the game.
I get it, but I might still want to do that because I feel like I can get rid of more later. I almost think the game should be called Don't Tick Off the Aliens because that can easily become your focus of this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was I hadn't fully formulated my thought, and Chris kind of hit it. It's that I do think there's maybe a psychological element, and the way, and it's going to be mostly with people who are playing it for the first, maybe second time, I think. I think after you've played it a few times, you better understand kind of what the balance is. You understand how many opportunities you have to gain or lose those offense tokens. But what I have found, which is kind of fun, is that early on in the game, because we've talked about this being an auction game, and while I will not disagree with that, I think it is much more of a push your luck game than it is an auction game. Early in the game, I think people are less worried about, at least first-time, second-time players are less worried about taking those offense tokens, and so they're more willing to take those risks early on. So maybe, again, there's a psychological element there, but yeah, I'm not sure mathematically the differences.
That's a good question. Like on you always play with the same starting board, and on the second or third space, right? You can push your luck to draw 4 cards or whatever. Is there anyone on Earth who has not done that? Like, it's just going to happen. You don't want to start behind everyone else. So, I mean, you could do it. I guess it almost seems like you should just have to do it.
Well, it's funny. I have played it where one person at the table went, "No, I'm okay." You're like, well, they have a lot of good cards for this first event then, whereas everyone else did it, and they took some offense off the bat. And it's just, and it's nice because it does cause some little ripples from which, the further ripples differentiate people's kind of position a little bit more. Someone who does a perfect flub on the opening one, and then someone who gets like 3 cards from it but causes an offense, and someone who sits out completely. I think that 1, it sets a tone, and 2, it also causes those little variations.
I think that's one of the things they fixed, the perfect flub. Like, the flub is not, well, at least you didn't take the aliens off, because they just feel sorry for you.
It used to be much more punishing and much more positizing if you got like a perfect reveal, and that's one of the things they created this balance, comparing it to Beowulf. If you might get something, but at a cost, and so it kind of, I don't know, they kind of normalized the spread a little bit, so to speak.
I do like that you can see everything that's coming ahead. And one of the cool things that they changed from the original game is it's now every game the path will be slightly different. Not a huge thing. You'll take a board out and they'll be switched around. But that does matter, right? Like, this turn I can get these cards, but I'm not going to need them for the rest of the game, except for maybe final endgame points. And as an aside for that, I guess I could ask you, I've not played with the extra little boards. Have either of you?
Mike has, yeah.
Yeah, we played when we did the playthrough there at the studio. We actually included those longer those extension boards, I think they called them. My preference is to play without them personally because of the style of game it is. I don't think that it benefits from being longer personally, but as you did mention, those add more of the bidding events, which is kind of like where you're blind bidding the cards. You're not doing it one at a time. But yeah, I prefer it without those boards. But if you want a longer version of the game, you can certainly add those. The one thing I did want to point out is that I think the most consequential thing as far as the variable setup of the boards is both if and when the Sinister system is in the game. That Sinister system is the red board, and it's the one where in the negotiation event, there's basically no good outcomes. There's just less bad outcomes. And so I've played games where the Sinister system is the second board. And let me tell you, that game played very differently than in the one game I played that didn't have that board in there at all, or if it was later on in the mix. So I do think there's a nice little bit of variation that you see there. That one board specifically, I think, is the one that can change the kind of the tempo or the feel, not tempo, the feel of the game.
And if you don't like it, you can just take it out.
Yeah, it's nice that they included enough that you can avoid it. My personal preference is always to play with it because, as Mike said, it is the one that feels the most different. What I'll say to your point about the extension boards, or to Mike's point, is that so I've played this game at a variety of player counts. I was shocked that I enjoyed it so much at the 2-player count, actually, because the way that's designed, that there's always pretty much in each of those negotiation or auction events, there's like a good thing, a bad thing, and then for the higher player counts, variations of good things. So in a 2-player game, every of those negotiation events, or really kind of these push your luck auctions, has a good and a bad outcome. So in 2 players, you're sitting there constantly thinking, I don't want to go out I don't want to go out first. And so I think it's well done there, and it can be extremely short. I taught the entire rule set and played it in about 40 minutes at 2 players. And so for the lower player count games, I think that those extension boards might help fill it out a little bit, but I would not want to play with them at the higher player count because it feels good as is.
I kind of like the spread of choices, though.
I agree. I think that I would maybe prefer to play with 4 players or more, but I really like the 2-player game as well.
So what do you think about the bidding slash push your luck? So in this game, you don't need to outbid the other person. You just need to match their bid, but you do it by playing 1 card at a time, which is a little wonky to teach people. I found that visually you show them. They're like, I'll bid 3. I'm like, well, you can't do that unless you play 1 to match me and then play 1 with 2 tokens on, which then shoots it up to 3. If you play the 2 first and my bid was 1, you're done. It's kind of a wonky little system, but I mean, once you understand it works well, but it makes bidding more interesting. Everyone's matching. It almost has a no thanks feel, like who's going to be the first person to drop out.
I especially like it because you've got a mini push your luck at the beginning of your turn every time if you choose to do it. The big kind of risk there is that if you get a full, like a not even a partial success, then you're out. You're out of that negotiation for the rest of that event. And so I like it that you may not even have any of the matching cards in your hand, or you may only have 1 and you need 2. You could take that risk and you're risking usually 1 offense token, but you can draw into a double icon card or something like that. And so I really like that element because it's like push your luck even in a place where you won't normally see push your luck. And it's also the swingiest part of the game. And so what I would say is that if you have a problem with luck in games, if you have a problem with blind card draw luck in games, then you will bounce very hard off of this. I really believe that, because that's a huge part of the game. It is, like I said, I think it's first a push your luck game, second an auction/bidding game. But you have to kind of know what your tolerance is for that. To me, this is kind of a raucous game. This is not a head down, quiet game. This is a game where a lot of trash talk can happen. I'm not saying it will, but it's kind of an exciting game, right? And so your tolerance for that kind of luck is going to, I think, determine how much you like the game or not. But I think you see that even in just the standard play a card, maybe play 2 cards, depending on the situation, you can push your luck even with that.
Well, that brings us to my final thoughts, because I was going to say the exact same thing as you in that regard. For me, this game is a 6. It's a low 6, actually. I want to be clear on that. But there's a lot of it I like. I like a lot of what's in the game, but Mike's right. If you don't like that luck, you're going to bounce off it. And for me, I think the luck was just a bit too much for how long the game is and how few auctions there are. It's weird to see how many, there's not even that many auctions. So each auction is a pretty big deal. And if you get busted on a few, I think for me, the pushing tilt on the luck was those chips from the bag. That drives me nuts. It's my least favorite part of the game. Like, there's a chip in the bag that's 1 coin. There's a chip that lets you draw 2 cards. I'll take that 2 cards every day of the week over the coin. And if you draw 2 of those 2 card things, I hate you. And I'm a little annoyed at now, even I'm calming down. It didn't happen in the game, I promise. But, and then to push your luck, you can whiff a few times on that, and you've lost. You know what I mean? And you've lost the game, especially in maybe critical later auctions and things are close, and you whiff. And yeah, like Mike says, it's a raucous game. I get it. This is in that same category almost as Quo Vadis and some of these other games that, I say Quo Vadis, Zoo Vadis, sorry.
Zoo Vadis, yeah.
These other games, it has that same kind of feel, but I could see people just getting really turned off by that. But other people really enjoying it. I like that a lot, and I would give this game a higher thing if it was just a smidge shorter than for me. If you're going to do that raucous stuff, that's great. It just kind of stretched out a little longer than I would like. But there is a ton of luck. I'm sorry. A wild is amazing. A wild is good. Drawing a wild is always good. There's no negative things for drawing a wild.
Let's see. I want to speak to the positives about it, but I do have a couple of thoughts that I do appreciate in the design. For example, the wilds are great, and they're really fun when you reveal them from the top of the deck, right? But they also do have a number on them, which is lower, right? They have a lower number printed on them for tie breaking in the different the simultaneous reveal events, right? So
yeah, that doesn't come up enough for me to care about it, but I get it.
Yeah, I have seen it come up though, and I think that's why I appreciate it. I've had quicker games. I've had much quicker games than you, it seems like, and so the amount of chaos for the amount of payout that I get from it sits just right for me. So I'm going to take your proverbial frown and turn it upside down.
I'm not frowning. No. Straight face.
Your 6. I'm inverting it. It's a 9 for me.
Oh wow!
I really like this game. The ability to kind of see out all of the events as they're coming up and plan a little bit for the future. So it gives you enough to kind of aim for, but also, do you want to draw 4 cards and maybe be able to keep some of them, but you might cause some offense? Yeah, I do want to do that, and it's just the humor lands for me, right? Mechanically, this is a funny game. I find
I'm with you on that. I agree on that very much.
Right, as you joked about, like you determine what the insults are that you've caused, the faux pas that you've done to these.
I shook their hand. It wasn't a hand.
A 9 from me. I really yes, those auction events, being able to push your luck, being able to bully your luck, not just push it, but you're shoving it sometimes. And it's such a fun time for me.
Yeah, this is my favorite of the space game trilogy, and I liked Orbit a lot. I like this more. I thought I was going to be the highest score, but I'm tying. I'm also a 9. This has so many things I like. Push Your Luck games and auction games are 2 of my favorite types of games. And so putting them together with a designer that I think does both of those mechanisms quite well is a positive. I like, and I've mentioned this on many other reviews I've done, I like the idea of games that feel like they're a series of mini games. This is also that. This feels like a series of mini games. I just kind of love that idea. I love how clean it is to go through the process. You're moving the spaceship along. After you've gone through, certainly by the end of the first board, everyone kind of gets what's happening, and there's this kind of this recognition of, oh, okay. And so you're not necessarily always thinking just about the next negotiation event. You're thinking about ones in the future. You're thinking about that final board where you know you've got to kind of save certain icons to be able to turn them in for points. All of those things are great. It has this kind of this, like I said, raucous and wacky feel to it. I am okay with the luck, but I do make sure I emphasize it when I'm teaching it because I have played it with people that have not liked it nearly as much because they have felt that it was too lucky, like you say, Tom. And so I think that's going to be when you're watching this review and you're thinking about whether this is going to be the type of game for you, I think that's going to be the tipping point. That's going to be the kind of the nexus that's going to tilt your opinion one way or the other. For me, I absolutely adore it. It just checks a lot of boxes for me. I don't even mind the token pulling from the bag because it's like, oh, well, if I drew a 1 credit token out of there, I know I'm just going to spend it for one of those things that let me trade it for points or removing the offense tokens. Not discounting what you're saying, Tom, but those things just don't bother me in this game. So for me, it's a 9.
All righty, well, there you go. Like Mike said, I think this is, of the 3, I think this is the one that you probably should play. Well, no, actually, you probably should play all of them before you buy them if you can pull it off. But this, I think, will be the most divisive, probably. And even I don't dislike it. I just don't want to play it that much, if that makes sense. But I think there's a lot of fun things, and if anything, Bitewing is just nailing it with their production these days.
Absolutely.
So that is Ego, the extraterrestrial greeting organization. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
We come in peace. everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.